Hi, my name is Dwayne Gathers, and welcome to CivitasLA, where we feature diverse and emerging leaders who make up this dynamic region and are creating community every day and building a better tomorrow. In these bi-weekly conversations, we hear from, learn from, and are inspired by a new generation of civic entrepreneurs who are forging a path forward in making Los Angeles a stronger, more resilient, and connected group of citizens. Now more than ever, we aim to elevate civic discourse, foster community connections, and promote civic knowledge and engagement across our region while elevating diverse and emerging voices in that conversation. So as we continue to celebrate Women's History Month this March 2021, CivitasLA is excited to be joined today by Rochelle Mills, President and CEO of Innovative Housing Opportunities. Rochelle has been honored as a Woman of Influence at the inaugural Orange County Power Women Award Ceremony, which identified and recognized 20 outstanding women who are leading and shaping commercial real estate. We invite you to join this dialogue today on creating and advancing economic diversity and what that means for building more sustainable and stable communities in our region. For IHO, Innovative Housing Opportunities, it all starts with housing. So in the studio with us today, we are delighted to welcome Rochelle Mills, President and CEO of Innovative Housing Opportunities. Rochelle, welcome to CivitasLA.
Thank you for having me here.
Well, we appreciate you being here today on this beautiful day in Los Angeles. Rochelle, we like to always start by having our guests give an introduction. So tell us about Rochelle Mills and your path to leadership of Innovative Housing Opportunities.
Sure. Let me first say I am a born and bred diehard Angelino. I grew up in South LA, went to Crenshaw High School. I had my own business out of a necessity. I started a Mills studio, design studio with my husband. We also had a company that did architours. In the mid-2000s, when the economy was pretty bad and I needed a new gig, I took a position as a temporary position that I thought would be 2 years with Innovative Housing Opportunities. I assumed I would do the job of a part-time project manager and then get back into affordable housing or get back into what we were doing, which was very high-end custom residential work. And 15 years later, I'm the CEO at IHO, and I think that my experiences in the past have uniquely positioned me to be here at this moment.
Oh, that's outstanding. Thank you. So, Rochelle, before we get into the meat of our conversation, we always like to have a little bit of a lightning round. And now you've shared with us that you are a born and bred Angelino. So we like to get an inside look at your Los Angeles. Or in this case, since IHO is based in Orange County, we can throw in Orange County as well. So let's start with a little lightning round questions, if you don't mind. Mm-hmm. Tell us your favorite restaurant or two in the region.
I'm going to have to wait until after COVID lets up so I can get back and explore again.
Okay. Favorite place to take a visitor pre-COVID?
I love taking people to downtown LA. There's so many different neighborhoods, so many different ethnic communities. I love taking people there. Okay,
and downtown LA comes up a lot, actually. Favorite hidden gem, someplace that we don't know?
I think people may know about it, but they don't know it well. I think the canals in Venice are often overlooked, and especially for Angelinos, they just don't seem to know about that neighborhood.
Okay. And that's interesting because I'm going to foreshadow the fact that we're actually going to do an episode looking at Venice, challenges, opportunities, history of, in a few months. So that's a great segue. Thank you. Favorite hike or favorite park? Since open space is such a big joy in our lives here in Southern California, tell us your favorite park or hidden or.
My favorite park would be Kenneth Hahn Park.
Oh, okay.
They have been expanding and adding to it, and I just think it is a jewel in the center of LA.
Favorite street food?
Oh, my favorite street food by far is tacos.
Okay.
And my favorite...
Do you have a favorite taco stand or favorite taco place?
Is the gas station at the corner of La Brea and Venice.
Oh, okay.
I think it's Leo's Tacos. It's a taco truck, and there's always a line.
Well, we're gonna find and post that one. Favorite neighborhood?
My favorite neighborhood, again, I'm going to say there's so many. I have been spending, since COVID, I've been doing a Rediscover LA with my family and going to different neighborhoods each week.
Oh, outstanding.
And so we rediscovered San Pedro. We've rediscovered Little Tokyo, Little Armenia, Bangladesh. There's just so much the city has to offer. I can't pick one.
That's great. Okay, that's great. Well, Rochelle, that was great. So let's begin our conversation. You've been at IHO 15 years, you mentioned. Share with us a bit of the history of IHO and an overview of your work there.
Sure. IHO was formed in 1976 as a result of a lawsuit against the city of Irvine to force them to include low to moderate income housing in their zoning ordinance. The reason why I'd like to start there is it shows that IHO was on the cusp of advocacy. And when the organization was formed, it was formed with a small board that was a representative of business, the educational system. UCI had just opened, faith community, and local government. And that speaks a lot to our commitment to engagement and collaboration.
Okay. And it focused on issues of affordable housing in Irvine. How has the organization evolved and grown its work over time?
Good question. We started off as Irvine Housing Opportunities, and we built the first 100% very low-income housing in 1981 in the city of Irvine. And that was our sole asset, our sole property for 35 years.
Wow.
I came to IHO in 2006. For the first 5 years, my job was to position that single property, Woodbridge Manor, so that it would be able to live on. However, in 2012, we really had what I would call a come to Jesus moment, wondering if we were being part of the solution or if we were being part of the problem. We saw housing as this great anchor for communities, but we weren't actively engaged in it. And so IHO started at that moment to actively go after development projects on our own and to raise the level, to bring a higher quality and a higher ethic to the affordable housing landscape.
Oh, that's great. Well, I know, you and I have had these conversations a number of times over the years after meeting at Nixon Peabody Affordable Housing Conference a couple of years ago. So as we think about today's topic about advancing economic diversity and building diverse communities and the role that housing plays in that, I wanted to reference a report that I think I shared with you from the Milken Institute entitled Accelerating Workforce Housing Development Across California. And it starts with the basic statistic that in California, we need about 1.8 million more housing units by 2025, and we're only producing on average 80,000 or so a year. So it goes on to say workforce housing is on the critically endangered list. So give me your reaction to this and share how this work informs your efforts at IHO.
That's such an important study. I think what people see is that as voters, we have voted in a large amount of money targeting homelessness and et cetera. But what they don't realize is the amount of time from start to finish can take anywhere from 4 to 7 years and beyond. First, let me say that I think we are doing as well as we can with the tools that we have. Having said that, we need new tools in the toolbox. Okay. Housing policy is largely reactive. We need to be proactive. I would like to see housing policy encourage and reward innovation, adding opportunities for developers, particularly those who are boots on the ground, to be able to contribute new, fresh ideas that will help accelerate housing, that will bring in efficiency. I'd like to see us move in that direction.
So to you, what does economic diversity for a community look like? What does it mean, and how does that go towards creating more economic stability and sustainability in communities?
It means that we're no longer designing silos. Right now, the housing policy tends, as I said, to be reactive. We see homelessness right now, so that's where the attention span is. That's where the dollars go. When I first got into housing, it was seniors. Shortly after that, it was veterans. And everything moved so that if you had a senior project, now it needed to become a senior veteran project. Now, if you have a veteran project, it needs to become a homelessness project. But the thing about economic diversity and what we're excited about at IHO is when you're able to mix the economic levels of housing, you're able to improve the long-term outcome of a community. And what I mean by that is you're making an investment in jobs, you're making an investment in the economic vibrancy of a community because you are encouraging external investment, and that means that you are creating a pathway for hope, which in turn reduces the recidivism of poverty.
Excellent. So let's talk about the role of public policy in advancing economic diversity and where there are examples that have led to beneficial results or unintended consequences, and which I think sometimes we might agree that it's further concentration of poverty and low-income housing in certain communities.
Well, you don't want to get Rochelle started on that. But okay. I believe that the place for housing policy is to listen, to learn, and then to lead the change. The unintended consequences that have come from most recent housing policy is exactly what you say. We are concentrating poverty in communities of color. We're adding to density, which is a good thing, Let me say that again. We're adding that along corridors where there is transit. But transit is largely concentrated in communities of color, which means we are concentrating lower incomes, which is exacerbating racial segregation, and it is thwarting the kind of economic investment that we need to keep those communities vibrant. My biggest fear is that we will get fatigue from the communities who have been so supportive of housing policy recently, but they're going to start saying, but what has the benefit been to our communities? Right now, we are, by design, legislating the middle class out of communities of color. And that's a very difficult thing for me, being an Angelino and developing projects within my community and recognizing that we are constrained by housing policy that won't allow us to capture that group of young people that we have prayed for and encouraged to go out and better themselves. They can't afford to come back. And so the examples that the people who are there need to see aren't coming back for them to see them.
Well, you talked about the role of community, and I know community engagement is key to your work. So working with community and active community engagement is important. So walk us through how your team goes about identifying project locations and advancing this economic diversity conversation with community groups.
Mm-hmm. Our goal is to work with the community to bring a value to it. We look at the work that we're doing as a legacy. What is the long-term impact? And as you say, are there consequences that we want to be aware of up front? When we identify a potential project, we look at the assets. We do asset mapping. Most of the hesitation that I find from communities is from this single idea that they don't want to be forgotten. Every community has its own special DNA. Even if the communities are the same racial makeup, Lincoln Heights is different than Boyle Heights. Crenshaw is different than Watts. And to come in with the same cliche does the community a disservice. So we start by finding those assets, and then we bring it to the community and ask them to partner with us to develop the criteria so that we are building a project that when it is completed, the community will be fiercely proud and loyal to.
Okay. So walk us through a project or two that you can point to as successful.
One of my favorite right now is South Los Angeles. We've got a project at the corner of, near the intersection of Manchester and Western. And I will tell you that is one of our best experiences with the community. We came to them as soon as we knew that was an area we were interested in. We have worked with them. They have been very candid about what they like, what they don't like, their fears about us coming in. Us being an Orange County-based organization did cause them some trepidation. They wanted to make sure we were authentic. They, like most communities, are asking us to come in with authenticity. They want to know that the people working on this project will live in, work in, and look like the community members. And I can tell you that we have taken that to heart. And as a result, that community has supported us at times when the council office has been concerned about should the project move forward. The community came back and supported us. And that's the way I want a project to be, where they know we are representing them in partnership. We're not dropping something on them.
And when you go into a community, who are you identifying as the community leaders? How do you identify them? Who are they? Is it a local business group? Is it a local church? Is it a neighborhood council? When you speak to community, who are you speaking to first?
Well, we learned the hard way that we need to do all of the above.
Okay.
We have gone in the past and worked through a community group that has been identified as the voice of the community.
Okay.
Only to find out 11 months and $200,000 later that they did not have the unified support of the community that we thought. So we do go in. We start off with the local agency because, to be quite frank, if we don't have the support of the council office, the project doesn't move forward.
Sure.
But they also have, in the city of Los Angeles, you have neighborhood councils. And so we work with the neighborhood council. Usually they will connect us, or through our own research, we will find the block clubs, the churches. We have now started working with the businesses around us.
Sure.
Because the work that we do are on major underutilized corridors, it takes collaboration with those stakeholders that are already there. Mm-hmm. And we can sometimes be the liaison between those for-profit entities, those grocery stores, gas stations, et cetera, and the community. And it's all hands on deck. I will tell you, for those who are looking at a lot of the numbers and the cost of projects, this is one of the reasons why real estate development is expensive. When you meet with community members, if you meet more than 4 times, it usually adds about 10% to the construction budget, the development cost.
Wow.
We meet a minimum of 6 times a year. Okay. So consider the amount of time that means in staff time, in coordination with the local agencies, in the community's time. But we believe very strongly in robust community engagement in order to get a project that is high quality, that is catalytic, and that is replicable in other communities.
And that's wonderful. But I assume at the same time, all of that engagement can also lead to a project not happening, and can lead to dead end. And I'm curious to know if you want to share if there's an example of a project or a project type that where you've done all this due diligence, all of this outreach, where it sort of didn't pan out, and I'm wondering why. And obviously, we don't want you to
absolutely
to mention where or who, but I'm just curious to know.
We did have a project where we spent a great deal of time, and it's wonderful when you have a community that actually has in writing what their goals are. But just because you bring in sincerity and hard work does not mean that you will be guaranteed a project at the end. We had a project where we were shortlisted, where we actually were going to be recommended in a request for proposals. And we worked in lockstep with the community. They gave us 6 pages of demands, and we actually met 6 pages of demands, only to find at the very end that they truly did not want to work with us. I will tell you, it was sobering to hear from them that they were proud that we were so sincere and had met those needs. But the reality was they had in their mind who they wanted to work with. And unfortunately, our local agencies really must rely on the support of the community. And without that support, that project did die for us. It was a lesson learned. I think what we came from that is that we're going to spend 2021 doing a public engagement and public information campaign so communities know what to expect when a developer comes, what is the work that has gone on behind the scenes. But we also recognize that there is probably, if we can't get a consensus within 4 months, then it's probably not a project that can move forward. And for a series of reasons, maybe they don't have the structure in place to be able to make a decision. Maybe they don't understand what exactly it is they want yet. But we have a commitment to our board of directors and those who are donating to us to not put money where it can't generate units. That is our mission. Sure. And so if after 4 months the community is not in a position to move forward, we've decided that we probably need to step back.
Well, I was going to ask you about lessons learned and that you can share with others, and I wonder if there is not maybe a consensus amongst yourselves and other affordable housing developers who may have or are experiencing the same thing, and to say, hey, look, let's put the word out there that 4 to 5 months of community engagement is a sufficient time period beyond which we just have to move on to the next opportunity.
Right. One of the things, and this is a delicate tightrope walk for us, is to ask the local agencies, our council offices, to have some accountability on the part of not just the developers, but the community. If a developer is coming in good faith, and we tend to be painted with the same greedy, money, profiteering paintbrush that all developers are. We're a mission-driven nonprofit developer. But if we are held to accountability, the community has to as well. And if we are engaging in a community, there should be some good faith requirement that they put in writing what their goal is. And if the developer meets that, and I would say up to 80% of it, if the developer meets that, there should not be an opportunity for a community to say, we changed our mind.
Right. So Rochelle, that's a conversation to be had for sure, and really to look at ways to get community buy-in in advance. But let's talk about your projects. You work a lot with communities to cite a particular project, but within your project, you also provide a wide range of programs and services. So it's not just building the physical assets. Right. So you incorporate a range of services and programs for the residents. So tell us why you go about doing that.
Well, we like to look at it as the IHO difference, the 6 differentiators that are critical to us in the work that we do. And I'll go through them really quickly. Mm-hmm. Comprehensive catalytic development. We use creative placemaking, community economic development principles, and et cetera, including open space, integrating services and case management. We cannot bring those people who have high acuity needs into a property without wrapping them around with services that help them to become resilient and independent. We also believe very strongly in mixed income, mixed populations, and where appropriate, mixed use. That diversity That brings up the economic diversity that you talked about. It helps us reflect a diversity of incomes, backgrounds, and abilities that encourage personal growth and discourage the kinds of silos that development is encouraging right now. We are very big on community impact and engagement, talking about the legacy and the ripple effect of the decisions that we make. What's also critically important to us is architecture and art. We want our buildings to be beautiful. We want them to uplift the soul as much as possible. And we also want people to, we want to live out JEDI, justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. And we do that now not only through every component of our work, but by the dollars that we spend, the consultants that we bring in. We make very clear, and this is exciting to me to be in a position that we can make those demands because we couldn't when I first started at IO. But we will tell communities or builders or architects, are you mentoring a minority or woman-owned business? And we make that a requirement. We want the communities to see people who look like them creating these landmarks in their communities.
Well, I appreciate the fact that you offer this wide range of programs and services, and I know you are big in terms of incorporating art into your project as well. And I noticed that you were also on the board of Arts for LA, and we were grateful to have Gustavo Herrera, Executive Director of Arts for LA, on a previous episode talking about the creative economy, and we've had a number of conversations about the importance of that community here, but also a specific project, Michael Bond from Studio 111 on a project in Orange County. So, talk about the programs and services that you offer in your projects and the role that art plays in your projects.
Absolutely. It's exciting to be in a position at an organization where so much of my background is now being utilized in housing. I never would have thought about it that way. Gustavo is such a dynamic director of Arts for LA. And when I first joined the board, he did a study that talked about the importance of arts in community revitalization. Now, add that to the work that we are doing on another project that I'm excited about in Golden Circle in Santa Ana, where Michael Bond is the architect. And being able to take a creative person like Michael and to use the information and the experience that I have as a board member on Arts for LA and to put it into a project where we can pivot, where you can create these wonderful interior and exterior spaces that can be utilized for outdoor performances, for artwork, for creative spaces inside. We've got an architect that we're working with in our South LA project where we met with the community, and the community members said, well, we've been collecting all of this memorabilia from the Tuskegee Airmen and from Black culture. And for us to be able to have architects like Raw International and GGLO and Studio 111 and Michael Bond say, why don't we incorporate that into the design of the building? Why don't we redesign the lobby space so it is a gallery that the community can put those pieces of art in? That, to me, is exciting. I would have never known that we could do those kinds of things with affordable housing, where we can be responsive. And those are the things when a community becomes so vested because they feel heard. They know that as the community changes, which is inevitable, that a part of them will remain. And that, to me, that's power when you're talking about affordable housing and community development.
Sure. No, that's amazing. That's amazing. So that's the amazing, segue into our next question, because I always talk about, the work that we can do to foster partnerships and collaborations. And it sounds like you're doing an amazing job at that. So what are the types of partnerships and collaborations that you're looking for as an organization, and how can others become involved in this important work?
The thing that is really keeping me up at night is how can we do more? How can we raise the bar? And the challenge that I have is the limitations of public dollars. Again, there is a place for that. But what we are looking at is ways that we can leverage our own liquidity and invite the community and businesses and anchor companies and foundations to work with us to develop housing without public dollars. What is the value of that? We can accelerate those units. Rather than 4 to 7 years coming online, we can turn those units around in 2 to 3 years. We can incorporate art. We can mix incomes without throwing into jeopardy the public requirements that they focus exclusively on homelessness. We can make sure that the services that are critical to housing are secure for that 55-year period that we are required to keep those properties affordable. What I would love is if this resonates with people, I don't want you to give to IHO. I want you to give through IHO. Serve these communities. Create those opportunities for innovation by partnering with us through your dollars, through your time, and help us bring your vision to life. I know we're not the only ones who want to do these things, but we can't do it with good wishes. We truly do need the capital to be able to bring these visions to life.
And certainly in the episode notes, we do have your website, which is www.innovativehousing.com. So we invite all of our listeners to go to that website to learn more. So Rochelle, you've led the organization for 15 years. We hopefully are rounding the corner on COVID and coming back to a point of economic recovery. What's your vision for IHO? Where are your upcoming projects that you can share?
We've got projects now. Our footprint is now Southern California. I'm excited about the projects that we have because they look at economic development. They are beautifully designed. They are very humane in the way that we treat services and incorporate them into our projects, extremely collaborative. We've got projects in Santa Ana, South Los Angeles, in Riverside. We are doing a project in conjunction, in partnership with the city, the county, and the community college district for transition age youth. We've got projects that talk about a 360 degree. We had a project in Carlsbad that we were going to build 100 and something units. Over time, CEQA and other challenges almost killed the project. It has come back to life, and we're going to be building 87 units within a mile of the ocean.
Oh, wow.
Just a lot of excitement because we have an opportunity to enhance communities by bringing in housing.
That's wonderful. So Rochelle, this month, CivitasLA is celebrating the great role that women play in leading communities, and we're celebrating, the great women who've joined us on this podcast, and of course the conversations this month. So, in 2019, you were honored as a woman of influence and chosen amongst 20 Orange County women who are leading and shaping the commercial real estate industry, which is probably not the most diverse industry around, shall we say. Speak to what that means or meant to you at that time, and what you see in terms of engaging more women, particularly women of color, in real estate in our region.
That meant a lot to me. My journey to CEO took 13 years at IHO. And I will say it took 15 years to feel comfortable and respected in that role. When I was recognized by BizNow, there were a lot of people who contacted me after it to say how much it meant to them, and that meant a lot to me. It is difficult to ascend to a leadership role as a woman of color. I'm not whining. I'm just telling you the truth.
Okay.
People don't see it. Your board members may love you, but they will tell you that they don't see it. And if they can't see it, you can't be it in their mind's eye. And so I feel
Rochelle, I'm going to stop you right there because that was an exact phrase used by Betty Lamar in our most recent episode with Empower Her, the work that they do with young adolescent girls of color. If you can't see it, then you can't be it. Unbelievable.
Yeah. It is so true. On my journey to becoming the CEO here, I was so discouraged. I started a what I call a celebration, not an organization, that I call Strong Black Tea, where I brought together Black women who were in this space who I admired, because I needed to be filled up and we needed to find a way to celebrate the things that we do. What I would say to women, and especially women of color, is we cannot wait for people to pat us on the back. Sometimes we have to do it ourselves. I think we find ourselves trapped in that humility conundrum, and there is no place for humility. I'm not saying be arrogant, but when a Power Woman application comes up, you have to write your own application and not wait for somebody to write it for you. When Woman of the Year comes up, you've got to write why you believe you're Woman of the Year. And what I found, which was something that I want to share with a lot of people, is that my board was able to celebrate me when I clearly told them why I should be celebrated. Now, you may be upset that you should have to do that, but people are busy.
Okay.
And what I found was, rather than whining and complaining and being upset about not being recognized, I put together a document that I share with my board each month, my CEO report, that tells them why I am here at this moment in the right place. And that helped. And it let me know that perhaps those 13 years that I did not ascend into this role, I have to take responsibility for that. So for those young and those women who are my age and are wanting more responsibility, I believe in doing what Shirley Chisholm said. If there's no room for you at the table, bring your folding chair.
Okay.
What I do now is I make sure if I have something to say, I invite myself and say it. You've got to be willing to do that, and you've got to be willing to be ushered out through the back door and not take it personally.
Rochelle, that is outstanding. This has been truly a wonderful conversation, and we're so excited to have you with us today. Thank you for the work that you do, the team that you've assembled to carry out this work, and you've certainly left us with a lot to think about and act on. As always, we give our guests the last word. Any final thoughts you want to share?
I will tell you, you asked earlier about were there unintended consequences because of legislation, et cetera. But I do want to recognize a couple of women that I think have been phenomenal and who I owe a debt of gratitude for. Our state treasurer, Fiona Ma, has just been an amazing force going throughout the state and listening and moving people of color into positions of leadership. Judith Blackwell, who was the head of CIDLAC and TCAC, she put together a team that helped us make changes to that state fund that allowed for a BIPOC set-aside so that organizations that are led by minorities have an equal playing field in housing. Tia Boatman-Patterson, who just left Cal HFA to move on to the Biden administration, she put together a mixed income program that allows that kind of economic diversity that we need in our communities, but it is such a smart and award-winning project that it also cuts by more than $100,000 per unit the cost of developing affordable housing. There are smart women that have paved a way and may not get the recognition that they need. And I will also add to that Mary Watson Bruce, who was the board chair and brought me into IHO when I had no experience with affordable housing, and Pat Whitaker, who came in when I realized I was not going to be made CEO and needed to bring a mentor in. And she was gracious enough to take that role and then kind of guide me to a point where I could then take the reins. There are many, many wonderful people along the route, and I want to make sure that people know that even if they aren't recognized, that their work has not been missed by most of us.
Rochelle, that is outstanding. Thank you for being here. You are truly a woman of influence, and we appreciate you being with us here on this beautiful afternoon in Los Angeles. To our audience, thank you for joining us as always. We hope you enjoyed this program, and we hope you'll join us in 2 weeks as we look forward to another great conversation as we continue to celebrate Women's History Month. And as we say, until we meet again, stay strong and get involved. To learn more about CivitasLA and share feedback on this program, or if you have a recommendation about future programs, please visit our website at www.civitasla.com. And if you're on our site, we invite you to take our listener survey and offer your suggestions. We also invite you to visit our support page and consider ways that you might support this work, including through the purchase of some great new merchandise that we have, including a great CivitasLA tote bag and an outstanding CivitasLA face mask, which everyone is wearing right now. And finally, as we grow our CivitasLA family, we invite you to connect with us on Facebook at CivitasLA, Instagram at Civitas_LA, and on Twitter at Civitas_LA.